At the Department of Labor, I'm honored to be the Secretary of Transportation, of everything else but labor. Labor. Don't tell the other secretaries I said that because they'll get mad. They think I want to jump ship. I don't. We launched the Good Jobs Initiative. I talked about it a little earlier today, to make sure that everything we do is helping workers to meet this very moment. It means valuing and investing in our cares economy, taking action to support partnerships and investments focused in industries in the cares economy, for example, healthcare and educational occupations and childcare. And that's why we've been collaborating, expanding partnerships with intermediaries, particularly through registered apprenticeships, to create pathways into the care sector and elevating the importance of job quality in these occupations. In our workforce development, especially, we depend on collaborations with state and local government and county government. Employers, large and small, need to be at the table because they're the ones looking for the workers. So we're working with them. Unions, community colleges, HBCUs, workforce experts, people on the ground who understand what the local needs are needed in your communities. The President's American Rescue Plan is providing states and local governments with the resources to address workforce needs like we've never seen before. And that's a good thing, because to seize this opportunity, we need to be working collectively, collaboratively together. We need a sense of urgency at every single level of government and society. And we need to innovate and forge new partnerships. That's why the conversations that you're having today are so important. We need to hear about the successes and what's working. We need to hear about the problems and the challenges that we need to overcome and collectively work together on. We need to share best practices and scale up what's working to get people good jobs where they can thrive. That's how we'll build a workforce for the nation, what the nation needs, and we'll achieve economic justice for our people who deserve it. It's my honor now, at this moment, to introduce someone who leads the fight for good jobs and working families in this country. I've been with her in White House meetings. I've been with her in union halls. I've been with her in community colleges. I've been with her in neighborhoods all across this country. Whatever room she is in, the opportunities for working families is always her priority. She gets it. She served at a local level. She served at a state level. She served at a national level. And now she serves as our Vice President. So please welcome, I'd like to welcome our Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. What an array of extraordinary American leaders. I thank you all for being here and for the work you're doing every day. And Secretary Walsh, I want to thank you for that introduction. But mostly I want to thank you for the work that you have done your entire career. And as he said, he and I have been traveling the country together, and he is an extraordinary fighter for the working people of America. It is also good to be here with Gene Sperling, and he has, as I mentioned to many of the leaders earlier, he has been working day and night to coordinate with you to ensure that the American people benefit directly from the American Rescue Plan. So Gene, I want to thank you for your leadership, and I want to also recognize a long-standing public servant and leader, Governor Roy Cooper, along with Governor Tom Wolf, who has done an extraordinary job during difficult times. So thank you all, and to all of the local and state elected leaders for being here today. Before I begin, I will address this month's CPI report. There is no question that we still have work to do, but it is important to note that these numbers do not fully reflect the recent drop in gas prices. Average national gas prices have fallen every day for nearly 30 days. Since mid-June, prices are down 40 cents a gallon. Fighting inflation is one of our administration's top economic priorities, which is why we have taken action to lower the cost of living for Americans, millions of Americans. We are releasing 1 million barrels of oil a day from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to lower prices at the pump. We have reduced high-speed internet bills for millions of Americans. And we passed a tax cut to give working families up to $8,000 a year, which means giving folks more room in their budgets to buy food, medication, and school supplies for their children. President Joe Biden and I are always fighting to make sure that working families can get ahead and stay ahead. And that is why we continue to call on Congress to pass legislation to lower the price of prescription drugs, of health care, and the other everyday essentials that will meet the needs of American families. And so helping working families is why we are here today. When President Biden and I took office, our nation was facing its worst economic crisis in generations. We all remember. Millions of jobs had been lost. Millions of small businesses closed. Millions of families pushed right to the edge. But we were not deterred. These leaders were not deterred. From day one, President Biden and I knew that to overcome these historic economic challenges, we needed to make an historic investment in our nation's working families. We needed to build an economy that works for working people. And that is why, with your help, we fought for and passed the American Rescue Plan, which included, among many things, a $40 billion investment in workforce development. Just think about that. When we talk about an investment in workforce development, that is about a direct investment in working people in America. It's a direct investment in human capacity. And for that reason, I know we're all excited about what it means and the potential for where this will go for generations of workers in America. So today it is an honor to gather with a group of leaders who are putting ARP dollars to work in communities across our nation. Governors and mayors, city commissioners and county executives, workers and labor leaders. With your help, we are creating good-paying jobs in small towns and big cities. Jobs for nurses and doctors, jobs for steel workers, pipe fitters, and engineers. Together, we are investing in training programs and apprenticeships that give workers the skills they need to take on the jobs with better wages and better benefits. In particular, workers from underrepresented backgrounds. Together, we are expanding access to transportation. Seems like maybe it's a small issue, it's a big issue. You need to get to go and need to be able to get where you need to go to do the work and get home. So we have expanded access to transportation, including what we need to do to invest in public transit, understanding that the infrastructure in our country around public transit is and has been in disrepair in many areas of our country, and so that is the investment that we have put in there. And together we are fighting to improve and expand our child care and health care workforce so that everyone who needs better care can have access to better care, no matter where they live and no matter how much money they make. That includes 8 million Americans who are part of the so-called sandwich generation, which means they're right there in the middle, taking care of both their children and their parents. And that includes people with mental and physical disabilities, so they can access the critical care and support they need to succeed and to thrive, Together, we are doing so much important and impactful work. And we have therefore convened this summit with these extraordinary leaders so they can share their stories and share the stories of the people they represent. And so we can discuss how we can continue to work together on behalf of the working people of our nation. I have seen firsthand how much is possible when we collaborate across lines that relate to the direct benefit of the people of our nation. In fact, earlier this year, I visited a union training facility in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's called WRPT Big Step. At Big Step, I met workers who had received training to remove and replace the lead pipes and service lines that are poisoning our communities. It was truly an inspiration. As a result of their training, those workers can now access good-paying union jobs, jobs they can raise a family on, jobs they can build a future on, jobs that are helping us build a better future for our entire nation. Today, as many as 10 million homes and 400,000 schools and child care facilities receive their water through lead pipes. Graduates of Big Step are already removing lead pipes in Milwaukee. We have leaders from Milwaukee with us here today, and in communities across America. Big Step is one of hundreds of job training facilities around our nation that received funding through the ARP. Here with us today is Lindsay Bloomer, president of WRPT Big Step. Lindsay, where are you? There you are. And Lindsay and all of the leaders here, I want to thank you for all that you have done to make real the promise of the American Rescue Plan. Since President Joe Biden and I took office, we have accomplished so much with your help, but we still have more to do. We must continue our work together to build a nation where every worker is treated with dignity, where every community is safe and healthy, and where every child can reach their God-given potential. Because every person in our nation, no matter where they start, deserves the opportunity to succeed and to thrive. That is the future we are all fighting for. And that is the future our administration is fighting for. A future that we will all build together. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you all. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am Keisha Lance Bottoms, the former mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, and now senior advisor to the president for public engagement. We are so happy that you could join us today for this important event on the American Rescue Plan, an historic investment in our people, our families, our communities, and our workers. As a former mayor, I'm thrilled to see the wide array of workforce investment best practices from across the country on display today, as well as this much needed call to action for more state and local leaders to spend additional ARP funds on workforce. I'm also excited for today's historic announcement that the Biden-Harris administration has delivered over $40 billion in American Rescue Plan funds committed to strengthening and expanding our workforce. During my service as mayor, I saw the transformative impact of ARP funds to strengthen Atlanta's workforce programs through investments of more than $4.7 million in workforce development programs and $2 million to complement ongoing youth engagement and employment efforts. It was a game changer in our city, and I know that it has been the same for cities and communities across our country. I'm also glad to see a special focus on expanding the workforce with an equity lens and the intentional focus our administration has placed on the care economy. Since day one, President Biden has prioritized equity and workers, and he remains steadfast in his commitment to doing everything that he possibly can to ensure that every American has the opportunity to reach their fullest potential. As we all know, and I know personally, state and local leaders have the power to impact their communities in so many important ways. To that end, we are looking forward to continuing our work with officials around the country to learn from each other, share best practices, and leverage ARP dollars to make a real difference in the lives of workers and families. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is important work, and our country desperately needs it, and we're glad you're here to be a part of it.
Hello, I'm Brian Deese. I'm the director of the National Economic Council at the White House. Thank you again for joining us today. I'm excited to have the opportunity to spend a couple of minutes speaking to you about how the American Rescue Plan and the bipartisan infrastructure law can work together to support America's communities and the skilled workforce we need to build the future we want. I'm grateful to the leadership of the president and the vice president, who you all just heard, as well as to Secretary Walsh and the other secretaries who are helping implement these historic undertakings. To Gene Sperling for leading our efforts on the American Rescue Plan, and Mitch Landrieu for leading on the bipartisan infrastructure law, and the entire administration, because as Mitch likes to say, this is a one team, one fight effort. There's so much opportunity around workforce development and getting more people into jobs and career pathways that come out of the American Rescue Plan and the infrastructure bill. This convening reinforces the breadth of that opportunity across sectors. But I want to take a couple of minutes to just zoom in on the intersection between infrastructure and the American Rescue Plan, and in particular, how we can harness this unique opportunity to not only rebuild and improve infrastructure, but also to build upon the progress of our labor market recovery, and over the long term, create and expand equitable pathways into good quality and union jobs. I think, as you all know, the infrastructure bill is a generational opportunity to just do just that, to build across all corners of our communities, cities, tribal lands, territories, and to build across sectors of our economy, from traditional construction trades around roads and bridges and rail infrastructure, but also new industries like batteries, hydrogen, electric vehicle charging, water systems, broadband. The opportunities are vast. But to make that real, one of the things we have heard consistently since the passage of this law is that we're going to need more American workers trained in the right categories to meet this opportunity. And that means we need employers, training providers, and labor partnering together in new ways to train and match workers for these jobs. So to do that, about a month ago, we launched something called the Infrastructure Talent Pipeline Challenge. This is a call to action for employers and training providers and their partners on how they can build and scale programs that will provide that skills training and match workers with the in-demand jobs that will be critical to meeting the prospect of this infrastructure bill. It's a challenge that says to everybody involved, let's not admire the problem of how we're going to get enough Americans trained into these jobs. Let's act, let's partner together, let's do things differently to meet this challenge together. So just give you a little bit of sense of what we're talking about here in this challenge. We know that the infrastructure bill is already spurring demand for all types of occupations: electricians, welders, laborers, architects, engineers, data scientists, etc. But we also know these labor markets are localized, and that what we need is a matching between local employers, community colleges, unions and training programs, and governments that are based locally and can identify and address the skills and occupational needs of their communities. So this challenge is saying, let's focus on three important sectors to start: broadband, number one; construction, number two; and what we're referring to as electrification, number three, which encompasses EV charging infrastructure, battery manufacturing, and the associated transmission investments, everything we need to electrify our economy. We have three departments that are leading on those three areas: the Department of Commerce for broadband, the Department of Transportation for construction, and the Department of Energy for electrification. Those departments have committed their resources and their capabilities to help employers and training providers match and scale. And the challenge to those employers and those training providers out there is the following: step up and tell us how you can partner to get more people trained into those jobs. Tell us how you can invest in proven strategies that work, like pre-apprenticeships. Tell us how you can build pathways that support recruitment and hiring and retainment of diverse talent in particular. And tell us how you can partner with states and cities who are braiding their rescue plan funding into achieving goals on the infrastructure side. And I'm excited that we're going to hear some of that partnership and symmetry here at this conference today. We hope that this challenge will actually spur people to understand best practices, will encourage more action and more ability to match quality, diverse talent pools across towns, regions, and states into those jobs that we need to meet this infrastructure challenge. We launched this on June 17th, a little less than a month ago, with 13 companies, 11 training providers, and 9 unions committing to join. In the weeks since, we've had enormous interest, with 30 organizations, 800 employers joining recent engagements about this challenge. And what I want to ask everybody today is step up and lean in to this effort as you can. We hope you will join us. Please take a look at the materials around the infrastructure talent pipeline challenges we've provided. Please reach out directly. I'm going to call out Hareen Contractor on my team. Get in touch We will provide information on how to do that. We want to hear from you about how you can participate in this. And our goal is to get people together in about 6 weeks to mark the commitments that have been made and the momentum that we're building around this challenge, around this mobilization, and demonstrate how we can do things differently to meet the moment on infrastructure, meet the moment on jobs, and bring these diverse historic sources of funding from the American Rescue Plan to the infrastructure bill together to show that the whole will be more than the sum of its parts. We're incredibly excited about this. We need your help. We need your input. So thank you, thank you. We look forward to hearing from you, and hopefully in a couple of weeks we can all together point to a lot of progress on this vein. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be with you all today to highlight such a critical issue, and it's wonderful to have so many of our state and local leaders here in person to really talk about the transformative work that they're doing and continuing to really invest in their communities. My name is Julie Chavez Rodriguez. I'm the Director of Intergovernmental Affairs and a Senior Advisor to President Biden. And as you've heard today, we're celebrating an over $40 billion investment or proposed investment in workforce development from the American Rescue Plan. And this comes on the heels of a June jobs report where we learned that private sector jobs have recovered all of the jobs lost during the pandemic. And we're continuing to add jobs even beyond that. Under the Biden-Harris administration, we have seen the fastest and strongest recovery in American history. And it would not have been possible without our key partners who are really prioritizing workforce development in their states. Over 1,000 state, local, tribal, and territory governments have committed or proposed to invest $13 billion in American Rescue Plan funds for workforce development. This includes hundreds of new workforce training and retention programs, including innovative partnerships with labor unions, who you'll also hear from today. States have also directed or incentivized over $2 billion in child care stabilization state grants to child care workers in the form of higher pay, retention bonuses, and expanded benefits, reducing turnover and increasing options so that parents can get back to work. And I can go on, but really we're here today to hear from two tremendous partners and governors who have really been leading the charge on investing in workforce development in home health care industries, in child care industries, and for populations that have been have had barriers to regaining employment. And so first, I'd like to start with Governor Wolf from the great state of Pennsylvania to share a little bit about the important investments that he's making in workforce development and also the impact that the American Rescue Plan has had on the state of Pennsylvania. Governor Wolf.
Thank you very much, Julie. I want to talk about three things, and I want to get to workforce. And I don't want to talk off the subject here, but let me just say something about, in general, about ARP and what it has meant to Pennsylvania. We're a commonwealth, by the way, not a state. But Pennsylvania has benefited greatly from ARP, and I think so has the nation. And I think we need to recognize that. There's a lot of talk right now about a looming recession, and I think it's always good in a market economy to think about what comes next. But I think to a certain extent it has crowded out the good things that have happened because of the American Rescue Plan. The recession that seems to be in the offing just hasn't hit. I was a business person before I actually became governor of Pennsylvania. So like I did when I was in business, every morning, the first thing I do is check revenues, receipts, by category from the prior day. And I've been doing that since I became governor in 2015. And we have seen a steady rise in revenues, but it has really taken off thanks to what the ARP has done. It's put money into the pockets of people, of businesses that really needed it. It was targeted. and it has done a tremendous job, and I see that in the receipts of Pennsylvania. So that Pennsylvania's, and we're like pretty much every other government around the country, we're in very good financial shape, and that has allowed us to do things that we could not have done before. Second thing is that inflation, 8:30, the new numbers came out, and the vice president talked about that, you know, when we get into July, it's probably going to start to moderate. But let's be honest about this. This is not something that came about as a result of ARP. If you take all the federal stimulus dollars that came out, including the CARES Act, the $918 billion amount that came out at the end of 2020, and ARP, it is less than the drop, the one-year drop in GDP that happened in 2020 because of the pandemic. So that is not the source of inflation. There's a war in Ukraine. There's all the readjustments that happen after any big crisis. I mean, after World War II, inflation for years it reached a peak of 20%, reached a peak of 15% after the Korean War. I think the new numbers are in excess of 8%, which is higher than it's been since the early 80s, but it's not because of the ARP. It's because of a lot of other things. And the final thing, workforce. ARP has allowed Pennsylvania to do some really incredible things, a lot of good things. One of them is in workforce development. One of the key things, the key issues for Pennsylvania is to reorganize our system of post-secondary education. Pennsylvania has, I think, the second highest number of seats in post-secondary education of any state in the union. So we have the capacity. When you talk to most governors right now, they're concerned about the Infrastructure Act and what that means for the need for skills. We have a heaven-sent opportunity here with the money from ARP, with the demographic trough that post-secondary education institutions are facing, and all the things that are going on from apprenticeship programs to community colleges to career and technical education at the secondary level to dual enrollment programs, community colleges. We've used the ARP funds to actually transform our state system of higher education. We've started there. We have 14 state universities. They have done a tremendous job using ARP funding to actually make higher education, post-secondary education, more relevant to the emerging needs of people at all ages who we need to take these jobs, and we need to have good careers so that they have family-sustaining jobs, and then they are in this for the long haul. That starts with a really good education program that is relevant and that has moved away from the old structure and the old systems, the old institutions that they had, and that we work in a more collaborative way to do this. ARP has allowed us to do this. So on the whole, ARP has made Pennsylvania a better place. I'm in my last few months as governor of Pennsylvania. I'm term limited, but our last budget was historic because of what it did in terms of the programs it invested in. We were allowed to invest in because of our financial situation, but also because of what we've done in the surplus we've created. This has allowed us to do a lot of things that we just couldn't do before, and it's all attributable to ARP.
Well, thank you so much, Governor, for sharing a little bit about your successes, but also just for your leadership on this issue. And it's so exciting to think about, really investing in people, in our human capital throughout our states. And so next, I'd like to turn to North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper to share a little bit about the work that they're doing there, in particular to address barriers to entry for some that are looking to get back into the workforce and really reach gainful employment.
Well, thank you, Julie. Always great to be with you and my good friend, Governor Tom Wolf of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I also want to thank Julie, you and the White House team, and the President for pulling us together a couple of weeks ago after the outrageous Roe v. Wade decision to talk about how we're going to protect women's reproductive freedom in the United States. Already, governors have begun issuing executive orders. We know the President has. That's part and parcel of a good workforce is making sure your employees have access to health care. And what we're doing to protect women's reproductive freedom is critical. One of the things about something bad happening, you got to look for the good things. I'm a Presbyterian elder, so I have to find something good out of something bad. And with this pandemic, we know how it affected us. But one of the things we've seen is that it put a bright light on systemic challenges that were already there, but gave us an opportunity to corral the resources to actually do something about them. And what has been done by this administration, both with the American Rescue Plan and the bipartisan infrastructure plan, it is going to affect the lives of every American. And I was governor. I got elected in 2016, so I had the other president for 4 years. And it seemed it was like every month we were promised an infrastructure plan that never came. With this administration, a bipartisan, robust infrastructure plan within the first year, along with the American Rescue Plan. And we could sit here all day and talk about the investments that are being made, but I wanted to talk about a few of them. We talk about a strong economy. Last year, North Carolina's GDP and our labor force returned to pre-pandemic levels in mid-2021, so that's a year ago. I just got back from Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina, where it was announced on the Oceanic Pier that North Carolina was the #1 state in the country for business by CNBC. And one of the reasons for that is investments that we have been able to make with the American Rescue Plan. Now, when you talk to CEOs, they talk about their workforce, but one of the tremendous barriers that we've seen, particularly exacerbated by COVID, is that childcare has been a significant stumbling block in people getting back into the workforce. We've been able to take American Rescue Plan funding, about $1.2, $1.3 billion, and make direct investments both in child care subsidies and directly to child care centers to help them with salaries, with bonuses, with health care, with facilities. I've been going around our state to announce these grants that are going to these facilities. It has actually increased the number of quality child care slots for children out there. Actually talked to several early childhood educators. Many of them told me that the bonuses and the raises kept them in the workforce and therefore was able to make sure that more people were able to get back into the workforce because their children, they were going to get quality child care. Talked to a parent. These child care facilities were innovative, some modified and put in new playgrounds, new equipment. Parent was so excited about that because we've been able to create that environment. And we need to continue these investments because it's going to help us in 3 ways. One, we know scientific research is pretty significant that quality early childhood education helps a child get ready for school and become more successful in life. Parents need quality child care for their children so they can go and work. Employers need quality child care so their employees can do the jobs that they were hired to do. And American Rescue Plan funding has helped us get there. Another couple of things, and I could talk about a lot, but one is that a few states that are left have not expanded Medicaid. In North Carolina, we could insure 500,000 to 600,000 North Carolinians. I have a Republican legislature, as does Governor Walsh. They have been standing in the way. Since I became governor, we have pushed hard for it. I even vetoed a budget about it. We've not been able to get it. But the Biden-Harris administration has put in a sweetener, a financial incentive for states to expand Medicaid. Now we're at a position where the Republican leader of the Senate and the House are both now in favor of Medicaid expansion, in no small part to that financial incentive. And when you look at child care, almost 25% of child care workers, educators, are uninsured. And many of them fall in that gap of making too much now to qualify for standard Medicaid, but not enough to qualify for the subsidies under the Affordable Care Act. And we'd love to be able to fix it if Congress could do something, but there are things that we still need to do to make sure that every American has health care. But that will help us, and those incentives have made a significant difference. So I think it's important for us to continue to tell people what is happening. We've done a lot with ARP money, also being able to invest in our workforce and to make sure that we are concentrating on high demand jobs, making sure that we are specializing and pinpointing our training, because we know where we have significant shortages of critical workers that are critical to our economy. So thank you, and thanks for letting me come and talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening, getting people back to work, and using these American Rescue Plan funds as well as our bipartisan infrastructure funds to get America going.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Governor Cooper. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that my niece is also a student at Davidson, so appreciate
Steph Curry.
higher education institutions within the state as well as within Pennsylvania. And just what a huge honor to hear from you two really leading key efforts in your states, and hopefully to provide some, I think, inspiration as well as instruction to others who can replicate the important investments that you're making, and really appreciate the connection between workforce and healthcare, especially as we look towards continuing our efforts there. So with that, I want to invite Gene Sperling back up to take us to our next panel. And thank you, Governor, so much for your leadership and your work on this issue.
Thanks.
You just got a flavor of some of the backstage debate between Governor Cooper and Vice President Harris over who gets credit for Steph Curry. Davidson College, North Carolina, or where he plays pro basketball now. At the NACO, the National Association of Counties conference earlier this year, President Biden said, not only has infrastructure finally arrived, we can look forward to an infrastructure decade. To prepare this infrastructure decade, he urged state and localities to get ready to meet the increased workforce needs of the bipartisan infrastructure law by mobilizing American Rescue Plan funds toward not only a strong quality workforce, but a diverse workforce that can fill these well-paying infrastructure jobs. In this session, we'll highlight jurisdictions that have answered the president's call through innovative models, and we will also, that include DC's Infrastructure Academy as well as the focus on pre-apprenticeships. I will say that you heard Brian Deese talk about the challenge, the pipeline talent challenge. We are using this conference today to not only highlight some of these efforts, but to also encourage more uses of American Rescue Plan dollars in the innovative ways that you are going to hear now. So this is both highlighting and part of our call to action. First up, I wanted to introduce who I guess we would consider our host mayor, Mayor Bowser, who has just been an excellent mayor in working to give every Washingtonian a fair shot. We at the White House for quite a while have been very interested in her infrastructure academy, their model for infrastructure training, and we wanted to give her a chance to explain, as we have heard, how their plan works and why this could be a model for other cities and counties across the country. Mayor Bowser?
Well, thank you, Gene. And I am happy to welcome you to Washington, D.C., our nation's capital and my hometown, home to 700,000 Washingtonians, tax-paying Americans, who I might add need 2 senators. So let's do something about that, too. I am pleased to work with the White House every step of the way on the American Rescue Plan and the $2.6 billion in federal aid through ARP that DC received has helped us recover from this pandemic in innumerable ways. Let me start by saying we know that good paying jobs that we're going to talk about today are also the key to helping with the two top items for DC residents, two top areas of concern. And that is affordability, especially affordable housing, and it's also public safety. And so that's why we always talk about a good paying job and addressing the top issues in our city. So ARP has allowed us over 4 years to invest over $500 million in preserving and creating affordable housing in DC. This is a part of our almost 8-year effort to create more affordable homes. It has also allowed us to invest $220 million to accelerating learning for students. We know, I think we're all going to look back over this time in COVID and know that what our students have lost in learning is significant, and it's going to have many, many years of trails. So this investment, and we're doing everything from high dose tutoring to more recreation opportunities to boost camps, you name it. We're doing it, including making sure more of our kids have more summer youth opportunities, job opportunities. And as I started, we are also investing over $168 million in bold new all of government initiatives to address public safety. And so that is key. We are also very happy that the ARP dollars allowed us to invest in a program, a 5-year-old program in DC that I started about 5 years ago when our electric company, our public utility, was considering a merger. And part of our agreement with them is those merger discussions was that they were going to help us launch an infrastructure academy. And it grew to include more than just the electric company, but also the gas company, our water authority, as well as Metro, our public transit agency. And at that time, each of those agencies literally had hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure work planned. Metro alone had a $20 billion state of good repair program. DC Water Authority had about $4 billion worth of tunnels to build, and on and on. We knew that those high impact job areas, often unionized job environments that had good paying jobs, was what we needed to grow and train DC residents to do. And that would help us make sure that more Washingtonians indeed get a fair shot and could afford to live in the city. So how do we grow good paying jobs? That helps us deal with the big question on Washingtonians' minds. We love what's happening in our city. We want to it to continue to be invested in and to grow across all 8 wards, but we want and need to be able to afford to live here. And that's what DC Infrastructure Academy allowed us to do. The big focus that I charge my team with is we're not going to train for training's sake. That at the end of every training opportunity, every cohort, there has to be a job. And so the vendors and contractors that we work with, our utility companies that we work with, agreed. They looked at their pipeline to make sure they had a job at the end, or their subcontractors had a job at the end. And so in 5 years, we have trained 2,300 people. We have a 90% completion rate and a 90% rate of people getting jobs at the end of the program. It's had so much success that we're looking for a new home, that we're going to build out one of our schools so that the Infrastructure Academy has more space. We have more space for on-demand training, including climbing poles and installing solar panels. all of the things that you would expect at a state-of-the-art infrastructure academy. It has also grown to include IT, another high-demand growth area in the district, as you might expect. So ARP is giving us $4 million more this year, $5 million more next year, which equal 200 more spots. And those spots, and sometimes when we talk about millions of dollars and spots in academies, we forget the people and the families that they represent. So I invited Markeisha to come with us today. And Markeisha is a DC resident and in the Infrastructure Academy. And she also highlights a growth area that you won't be surprised that I will highlight, and that is women in infrastructure. Women who are doing the frontline jobs, women who are creating companies in infrastructure, and then circulating those dollars in cities like ours. So we're grateful for the partnership, and we can't wait to do more.
Thank you, Markeisha, for being here. Thank you. Again, I think you have that as a very inspiring model. And the point that you made on the ensuring that there is a job at the end, we hear over and over again as critical for closing that trust gap in people making that deep commitment to this type of training. So thank you. We decided that we wanted to put now a special focus on the pre-apprenticeship model, because this is, we see as one of, and when I say we, I mean our infrastructure coordinator, Mitch Landrieu, Susan Rice, Secretary Walsh, others, one of the most promising way to build that pipeline and make sure it is more diverse, that it is more, includes more women, it includes more people of color, has been the pre-apprenticeship model. And so we thought it would be useful to zero in on that as a program to highlight, but then, as I said, also to expand and try to get more ARP funding in more cities and counties for that. So let me introduce the four people who will speak, and then they'll speak in the order that I introduced them. The first is Melissa Wells. She wears a lot of hats. She's a Maryland State delegate, but she's here today because she plays a leadership role in the building trades on apprenticeships, both formerly on the actual Baltimore DC Building Trade Council, and now as a special assistant to the president of NAB2. So she'll speak first, and then she'll be followed by Supervisor Holly Mitchell, who serves on the Board of Supervisors in LA County after being in the California State Assembly and Senate for many years, and a long time friend of our Vice President. She really has put an extraordinary focus on equity throughout their American Rescue Plan funds, and she'll speak on their innovative union-backed high road training partnership in LA County. The third person who then will speak is Commissioner John O'Grady, who serves on the Franklin County, Ohio Board of Commissioners. We met earlier, and we were so impressed with the model that they had in the pre-apprenticeship model that we invited him. As I said earlier, I'm born and raised in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I would not invite a guy from Columbus, Ohio, unless his program was very good. So that's a pretty high bar that he passed. And then lastly, Mayor Greg Fisher. Greg Fisher is the mayor of Louisville, former chair of the Conference of Mayors. He's had a strong program, which now they're going to use more American Rescue Plan dollars to expand. I really want to say that, in coordinating the American Rescue Plan, we've had several major programs where he, was one of the first mayors who and one of the most effective in areas like the emergency rental assistance, as well in various other areas of getting programs up and going and allowing us to point to him as how things could get done. And so we're very happy that he's also here as part of the pre-apprenticeship panel. And with that, I will turn it over to Melissa and then let everybody speak in the order introduced. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Jean. And it's just such a pleasure to be here today and be in this, I think at this level, to have a conversation about where the rubber meets the road in terms of as we look at our infrastructure needs and we look at the workforce development needs and the support that's associated with that for workers and their families. As Jean said, I'm Melissa Wells. I'm the Special Assistant to the President of North America's Building Trade Unions. And one of the reasons why I really have enjoyed working with the building trades is because of that commitment to diversity, and specifically to being very intentional about how we can create a more diverse workforce, one that looks more diverse than perhaps what some people might say their grandfathers' unions may have looked like. And so one of the biggest things that we are utilizing is pre-apprenticeship programs. We call them apprenticeship readiness programs. And for the last about 15 years, we've established over 170 of these programs across the country. And while we're so excited about this partnership and I think this commitment to the American Rescue Plan is because we are continuing to partner with state and local government, with our local building trades councils, with our employers, our employer partners, to ensure that we are getting more individuals from the communities where this work will take place or is taking place, to make sure that women, people of color, individuals from indigenous and native communities, individuals who are returning from formerly being incarcerated or justice involved, making sure that they have a direct guided pathway, a foot in the door to get into a well-paying construction union apprenticeship program. And the reason why that's so important is because we know that economic security is so vital. We've seen, during the pandemic and even prior to the pandemic, how much poverty really is ravaging our communities, and it's taking a toll on our communities. And so we are looking at making sure that we can help be a part of building generational wealth and closing the racial wealth gap as well through apprenticeship readiness programs. So just a few things I want to talk about. So the apprenticeship program is it is focused on providing a guided access and pathway into the building trade, to the various building trades. And so with that, we are partnering with our local councils, we're partnering with state and local community leaders, and more importantly, community-based organizations. I can't emphasize how much those partnerships in the community really is vital to recruitment, to making sure that, when folks say they can't find people in certain communities, the question is, well, who are you working with? And there are so many partners that really are down, they're really close to where folks that have not always had access where they are. And so those partnerships, whether it's with the National Urban League, whether it's with Catholic Charities or a myriad of other community-based and national organizations, we're partnering with them. And the other piece is that we know that individuals have barriers. And so we don't want to allow barriers to be a reason why we cannot create a more diverse workforce. And so that is why we established the Apprenticeship Readiness Program, the multi-craft core curriculum, about 15 years ago. That way we can create that pathway. So just a few things I want to kind of talk about is one of the things that we are going to focus on is scaling up. You're going to hear from some folks from this panel who we are partnering with, but I wanted to lift up Minnesota because I think it's a good example of how we were able to establish a program in Minneapolis, but with more funding through ARPA, through other state and federal dollars, we've been able to expand the program statewide. And we've been able to help serve more and more people. And this year alone have already served 40 individuals who are going into registered apprenticeship programs. And so why we're so enthusiastic about expanding the use of these funds is because we want to see programs similar to the expansion in Minnesota. We want to see that happening in other communities. And we are working and reaching out to mayors, county executives, and other community-based organizations in those areas to help make that connection. The last thing I want to talk about, because I think people like numbers, and so I want to just be really clear in terms of the success that we have seen over the last 5 years. But just over the span of 2016 to 2021, we've had over 10,000 MC3 completions. So that's apprenticeship readiness completions. And that includes 78.8% people of color, 21.2% are women, and 2% are veterans. And so that's resulted in about 3,300 known registered apprentices. So we know that this model is successful. We know that as more of the bipartisan infrastructure dollars hit the ground, that we're going to have to be able to fill the different jobs that will be necessary for us to meet our infrastructure needs. And just want to add that just in 2022 alone, we've had about 1,600 completions. And again, the numbers around people of color teeters around 78% and 22% among women. And so we are really looking forward to continuing to this expansion, to continuing to tap into our the American Rescue Plan dollars. And the other piece I want to talk about, because I know there's a panel following, but we understand that the care that's required, especially childcare, and that's why we will be spearheading 2 pilot programs through a Trades Future, which will focus on helping apprentices access childcare, both men and women, because we know that taking care of children is not only a woman's job, but it's the job of a family, right? And so we're really excited about this because we know that we want to continue to explore creative ways to remove barriers. We know that access to childcare is a significant barrier for a lot of people. And so we will be utilizing that. And the last thing I want to say is that we are working closely with not only community-based organizations, but with our high schools. We're also working closely with Department of Corrections in various states where we are actually in state prisons and providing training. That way, when individuals leave, they actually have the opportunity to have a clear pathway to employment. And I think that creates a stronger opportunity for them to reintegrate and to be successful once they return. So looking forward to continuing to work with all of you, to working with this administration, to put the ARPA dollars to good use and really meet the demand for skilled construction workers. And that those skilled construction workers are increasingly women, people of color, individuals that are returning from incarceration, and our veterans. So thank you again.
My name is Holly Mitchell, and I have the pleasure of being chair of the LA County Board of Supervisors, and I'm here today proudly representing 10 million Angelenos, over 4,000 square miles, who live in 88 cities and just north of 100 unincorporated communities across LA County. I want to thank Vice President Harris and Secretary Walsh and Mr. Sperling for inviting me and creating this opportunity, quite frankly, for us all to be here, to share best practices, and to learn from one another. You know, as the President talked about building back better, we flipped that on its head in LA County and said we were going to build back equitably, because we're clear that the communities that were disproportionately harmed by the dual pandemic, public health and economic, were the same communities that have been harmed by failures, quite frankly, of a strong economy or failures of government for investing in them for decades, perhaps generation. And so it should be no surprise that there are some segments of our communities that were harmed at a disproportionate rate. And in my humble opinion, the American Rescue Plan dollars gave us the unique opportunity to disproportionately invest in communities that have been disproportionately harmed by COVID and lack of investment for far too long. I have to just say, point of personal privilege, I came to elected office back in 2008 from a career as a child care administrator and advocate. And so to be in a space and a time now where I hear state leaders and local leaders put child care front and center, acknowledging that child care is what keeps America working, does my heart good. We've come a long way, yet we do have a long way to go. LA County, our former Secretary of Gov Ops at the state level, Yolanda Richardson, came to tour my district to look at some of the promotoras programs that she had funded during COVID to do community-based outreach. And she had an aha moment, and she shared it with me. You know, we tend to use this term hard to reach when we talk about communities who have difficulty accessing resources. She says, you know, it's unfair. Frankly, we've hardly reached them. And that helped me really understand what my charge was going to be and how I help lead my board and our county in investing disproportionately in communities who have been disproportionately harmed. And so as we talk about hardly reached communities and hardly hired populations, we are going to use and are investing $40 million of our ARP funding in workforce development with a focus on what we're calling high road training partnerships. We're expanding really kind of the definition, at least my formerly narrow-minded definition of the term infrastructure, because we're also invested in career opportunities in technology, the life sciences, healthcare, film and digital media careers, because it is Los Angeles County, because those are areas of investment that are important for this population. We've had a long history of working collaboratively with nonprofit organizations, higher learning, academia, our LA County and Orange County building trades organizations. And we're clear about what works and are using these additional dollars to invest and go above and beyond what we've done in pre-apprenticeship training programs to really figure out how we can help people kind of really permanently cross that bridge out of poverty into high income earning professions. And so we are really looking creatively and learning from what people have said why they hadn't been successful in, quite frankly, finishing apprenticeship programs in the past. With our $40 million investment, we're launching a program called our Worker Equity Fund. Far too many people have a unanticipated life experience that pulls them out of their training experience. A carburetor that breaks and you can't get to the program. Your already unstable housing situation, you lose it and you become unhoused. Health crisis, child care incident. And so the Worker Equity Fund gives flexible cash assistance up to $1,250 per person during the program to pay for these unexpected expenses. We're going to augment the stipend programs by $450 per week because I understand as a third-generation Native Angelino what it costs to live in LA County on a daily basis. And so we want to augment the stipend programs. We're going to expand the cohorts, so we hope to have an additional 750 people who are trained with a guaranteed permanent employment of at least 70% when they finish the program. The last piece that's critical for me, I think, frankly, as an agent of government, is my personal frustration when we build and develop amazing programs and the people who they are designed for, who would benefit from them, don't know or aren't connected. Or we build a bureaucracy that is so complicated people can't navigate their way through it. And so we're going to provide intensive case management to make sure that we help remove any barriers to success. Barriers like not having a driver's license, needing help getting your GED, mental health support, educational support, what any and all of the safety net programs that the county level of government is known to provide, we're going to integrate them into our high road training pre-apprenticeship program. For those of you who are as old as me, you may remember the old Leon Sullivan OIC program, where you trained people on what it meant to get a job and keep a job. Those are the kinds of services, in addition to health, mental health, substance abuse services, to make sure that they are benefiting from every element that the county has to offer. And so for me, data and numbers are important, but so are stories. I tend to be a storyteller because that's how I can connect with whether or not these programs are resonating and if we're connecting to the right people. So I'll introduce you to my fellow Angelino, Crystal, whose life drastically improved after participating in one of our high road training partnerships. The pandemic impacted her and her ability to secure a job. She lost her housing, was at risk of losing custody of her children. She was couch surfing, as many do, then moved into shelter and was at one point literally unhoused. Crystal went through our High Road Apprenticeship Readiness Program with Winter, Women in Non-Traditional Employment Roles, and graduated with her MC3 credential. Shortly after graduating, with the help of her case manager, she applied to IBEW Local 40 and was accepted into their Inside Wireman program. So Crystal today is making over $22 an hour as a second period Inside Wireman apprentice, and will be moving up to third period, where she will be making over $26 an hour. She was able to move into her own apartment. She was able to find reliable, consistent childcare that she could afford, that she was no longer relying on kind of this kith and kin arrangement where the children aren't in stable childcare, and that impacts their long-term development as well. So I am clear that our High Roads Pre-Apprenticeship Training Program is not just theory or concept or unachievable goals. It provides the lives of Angelenos with life-sustaining, life-improving skills and opportunity and support so women like Crystal and her children can thrive. That's what the American Rescue Plan dollars have done for us in LA County. I will close by saying I was talking to a member of the media a moment ago who said, you know, there are some that will argue that the American Rescue Plan dollars may have contributed to the recent numbers we just heard today in terms of the inflation rate. I said, well, that's one way of perceiving it. I happen to perceive it as an investment in the American people, an investment in people who have long been victims of high unemployment rates, victims of being houseless, victims of living in communities that were hardly reached. And so the American Rescue Plan dollars, from my perspective as a representative from local government, have given us the additional resources to fund programs that we've known for many years would work, just didn't have the opportunity to invest in them in a strategic, long-term way. So I'm thrilled to be here today to hear from and learn from my colleagues across this country in local government. It's ironic when you hear about our programs because so many of them are similar, which lets me know that we're all on the right track. We want to thank this administration for trusting in us and entrusting in the American people enough to invest in us as a way to permanently lift some of these hardly reached communities and neighborhoods out of multiple generations of poverty. Thank you very much.
I am Commissioner John O'Grady from Franklin County, Ohio. And I too would like to thank the Biden-Harris administration, Vice President Harris, Secretary Walsh, and especially Gene Sperling for having us here today for this summit and this conversation. It's important. And I know I feel especially blessed to be able to be here because I know it's a real tough invitation for a guy like me being a Buckeye to be able to get this invitation. So I'm glad to be here. I will focus today on our Building Futures program and how we leveraged our ARPA funds to support and expand this program. It's a program that we started in 2018 with county general fund dollars. But then as we received these, the American Rescue Plan Act dollars, we realized that this program that we had was created specifically for, or the ARPA funds were created specifically for something just like this program. It's a partnership that we've created with the Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council, the Columbus NAACP, and the Columbus Urban League. And there is a shared goal of growing and diversifying our workforce in the skilled trades, but especially among young people, underemployed people, people living in poverty, women, and communities of color. Building Futures is a 12-week pre-apprenticeship program that's designed to help low-income Franklin County residents pursue careers in the skilled construction trades, including electrical work, iron work, carpentry, painting, plumbing, you name it. Whatever they're interested in, whatever building trade piques their interest, once they get into this program, they can find it. The cohorts that we create are somewhere between 20, 25 people. In the first several weeks, they go through what we refer to as soft skills training. They go through skills assessment. They focus on teamwork, interpersonal skills training, and financial literacy curriculum. And then in the remaining weeks, they go through hard skills training, including curriculum developed by the building trades and everything from safety certification to specific trade literacy and math instruction, which is so important in so many of the trades these days. There's no tuition at all involved in this. The participants actually receive a $250 a week stipend. We provide wraparound services, much like those that Supervisor Mitchell was talking about, mentoring and comprehensive case management services. These services help address any barrier a participant may be facing, such as transportation, housing, childcare, many more. You know, having your car break down can't be a barrier to you going to work. Needing car repairs, needing childcare, bus passes, whatever it is that somebody needs, we've got to be able to figure out how to provide that to them so that they can get to these training sessions so that they can make this work. Exposure to the trades is important, and our union partners help develop the curriculum, and they also get involved throughout the program to expose participants to the different trades. So they these folks then identify the areas of interest and decide on their desired trade. As you can imagine, when we first created this, we began to build a gigantic backlog of what do you call it, a waiting list. We had a huge waiting list, and then all of a sudden comes along the American Rescue Plan dollars, and so that's when we decided it was time to expand the program. So the next step after the Building Futures graduation is to complete an entrance exam and progress directly into the Building Trades Apprenticeship Program. We've also had other specialized training cohorts, including our Driving Futures cohorts, which provides pre-apprenticeship training to enter the local Teamsters Union for driving professionals. So there's also both an individual and a community economic impact. More than half of the program graduates since 2018 were TANF eligible when they first enrolled, and most of the graduates have gone on to become apprentices, earning an average wage of $22 per hour plus benefits, with some earning as much as $30 to $40 an hour. The community impact that we are, the community impact part of this is that we are growing and skilling up and diversifying a workforce and building a much more equitable economy in Franklin County. So Franklin County is originally invested $850,000 in ARPA funds at the beginning of this year, and that allowed us to serve an additional 232 participants in the plan. Most recently, just last week, we continued to heed the President's call to action to invest in equitable workforce development in growing sectors, including construction, by doubling down on the investment in this program. My colleagues and I just approved last week an additional allocation of $923,000 in ARPA funds to support the Building Futures and Driving Futures program. So with this additional allocation of funds, we will add 8 new Driving Futures cohorts, which will serve 64 additional Franklin County participants just in the Driving Futures program. But thanks to the flexibility and resources in the ARPA program, we've been able to maintain county services and invest in initiatives like Building Futures to help us build a stronger, more prosperous economy with lasting and generational benefits. We're grateful to our Building Futures partners, the Columbus Building Trades, the NAACP, the Columbus Urban League, and our federal partners here in the Biden and Harris administration. We look forward to continuing to grow this program and to provide pathways and opportunities for all of Franklin County's residents. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Greg Fisher. I'm the mayor of the great city of Louisville, Kentucky, and it's a pleasure to be on the panel here today. And we're hearing a lot of common themes up here, but I think it's really important for the American people to really understand the impact of the life-saving and life-changing ARPA dollars that have been used throughout the United States of America. Too often, people take their government for granted, like it's just oxygen out here. What you're hearing is a lot of hardworking people and a lot of hardworking programs that are forever changing the lives of our citizens here in a super positive way. This would not have happened without the partners of the Biden-Harris administration, who really understood the gravity of the moment coming out of the pandemic recession, and said, we need to do something here. And there's a lot of people that can say, well, there's inflation's too high or this, that, or the other thing. But if we can think back to the Great Recession of 2008, and if the Biden-Harris administration had not taken this type of activity, we would still be in the very early stages of a 6, 7, 8-year-long deep recession that would have introduced all other type of problems to our country. So while no response is perfect, I am certainly grateful for what the Biden-Harris team has done. We hoped in Louisville that ARPA funds would be transformational. We see evidence of that each and every day, and I see promising evidence of that in the future as well. So what we're doing in Louisville is we're pushing for the ARPA funds to be invested in programs that are going to be building a stronger, more highly compensated, more equitable workforce, and ensure that vulnerable residents are not lost in the economic recovery. Because this is what you see time and time again throughout the history of the world in America, is that poor people are on the short end of the stick each and every time. And so these monies have given us an opportunity to change that. So I want to highlight a specific program called Kentuckiana Builds. It's a construction training program. You've heard similar stories up here so far. It's a partnership of Louisville Metro Government, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, our Workforce Investment Board, known as Kentuckiana Works, and the Louisville Urban League. What's great about the program is that people come out with credentials that show they are work ready. So one of the credentials is the National Construction Careers Education Research credential, NCCER, that certificate, and then an OSHA 10 safety card. So they are ready to go to work. So while federal dollars from the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, we call that WIOA, are used for the training and stipends for this program, the proposed ARPA investments will be used to expand the program, scale it on up, to enable nonprofit partners to provide critical wraparound supports like housing, transportation, food, and other services. So you've heard this up here. Why is that important? Over half of Americans cannot survive a $600 financial emergency. Over half of America, which is a sad state to be in for the wealthiest country in the world. So if you're in the program, you get a hiccup financially, you got a choice to make. It's like, do I take care of my kid or do I keep training? That's a bad choice to make. So these wraparound services say you can do both. We get them on a track to a productive career. So are the results there? In the 6 years of the program, with 2 of these deep into the COVID period, it has had a tremendous impact on our city. 435 graduates, 91%, 396 of them are African American, and 25%, 110, have been women. 78% of the graduates have gotten jobs directly in construction. This year's class is earning starting pay of $18 an hour. We also wanted to break the old cycle going into unions of what we call FBI recruitment. Of course, we love the FBI, but not this FBI. So FBI are friends, brothers, and in-laws. So when you look at most labor, organized labor around the country, it's disproportionately white. So how do we get a new workforce that more represents the BIPOC population of our country, the growing diversity of our country as well? So our Carpenters Union, the IBEW, have stepped up and begun partnering with the program in a major way in the last 2 years. They now allow graduates who apply to their apprenticeship programs to bypass some of the application requirements, so it puts them now at the front of the line, instead of that brother, or instead of that friend, or instead of that in-law. We wanted to tie that to the extraordinary opportunity that we're seeing with infrastructure investment that's underway and coming even more. So in 2021, in conjunction with our local power, water, and solid waste companies' 5-year capital plans, an equity and procurement task force was created to accelerate the MFDBE spend of these utilities. Our publicly funded projects obviously have specific minority and female hiring goals attached to them. So with the boom in construction spending, infrastructure spending, construction firms have an increasing interest and a need, a requirement to grow their black and female workforce to qualify for these kind of projects. So the wind's in our back here in terms of the importance of diversity in the workforce and the Kentuckiana Builds program that we've established. So that's the Kentuckiana Builds program. Beyond this investment, we've made a number of ARPA-funded investments in workforce, including comprehensive reentry program for formerly incarcerated individuals. Our country has a for too long had a habit of investing in people or investing in programs after there's a problem. We need to invest in these programs before there's a problem so people don't have problems. So if someone's incarcerated, let's invest in that situation so that they can come back into society ready to roll. In Kentucky, more than 16,000 individuals are released from prison every year. And returning residents have specific needs. And a lot of these folks have not or have been incarcerated for long periods of time and have a hard time finding a job with a conviction on their record. Yet these individuals are highly motivated to get back to work and get their life back on track. So you can just say, well, it's up to you. Only the strong survive. We know what that cycle looks like. It has not worked out. So we have got to change the systems to change the outcome. So we fund paid training opportunities and engage them with these barriers in mind, like transitional jobs that offer daily pay for daily work, deliberate connections to welcoming employers, and pre-apprenticeships that lead to union jobs or sectors to provide good careers for high barrier populations like the transportation sector. On this program, we're partnering with a national nonprofit called the Center for Employment Opportunities to provide job opportunities and intense wraparound supports, once again, for people coming out of prison, trying to connect them quickly to work and pay so that they can get their life on a better path when they get released and have coaching along the way. Now, during the pandemic recovery and in building our nation's infrastructure, what do we see everywhere? Jobs wanted. People can get hired. We can't leave the 1 in 3 Americans with a criminal record behind. And these type of partnerships provide a good roadmap forward for us. We've also created more wins for our employers and job seekers through our nationally recognized program called Code Louisville. We've now helped train and place more than 750 people into software development and related tech jobs at an average starting pay of over $45,000 a year. Average increase in pay for people in the 30 to 40% range. So what all these programs and results show us is that it's critical that we invest in smart, short-term job training efforts that are led by trusted community-based organizations and implemented with strong employer involvement. There's got to be a pull from the business sectors. So what the Biden-Harris American Rescue Plan Act has allowed us to do in Louisville is take the dreams that we've always had, but we never had the funding to do them, and fund these programs and put them to work and have a historic shift in our city, especially higher wages and career building jobs for people that have historically just been left out of the equation. And that's what good government's all about, is lifting people up so everybody has a chance for their human potential to flourish. That's how we define compassion, one of our city values in Louisville. So what these initiatives demonstrate and what ARPA demonstrates, they just say the proverbial win, win, win. Employers, job seekers, and the community. It's been great for us and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for that terrific conversation about our nation's physical infrastructure. I'm here to introduce our next segment, which relates to a different piece of the nation's infrastructure, that of our care infrastructure. As Jean has said many times, the president's vision for has always included his economic vision that our care economy is equally important to our nation's ability to succeed economically. So I'm really excited to introduce the next set of speakers, and they're going to talk about one of the most under-recognized aspects of the American Rescue Plan, its unprecedented commitment of resources to help deliver a stronger care workforce, providing better pay and career opportunities for care workers, and make it easier for workers with child and elder care responsibilities to join and stay in the workforce. To lead us off, I'll introduce and welcome back to the White House Administrator Carol Johnson, where she served here with us in the White House on the COVID-19 response team before taking over as Administrator of the Health Resources and Services Administration at HHS earlier this year. She brings deep knowledge and expertise, including from her time as a state leader serving as commissioner of the New Jersey Department of Human Services. And after we hear from Carol, we have a fantastic panel to talk about real innovation happening on the ground with rescue plan dollars in this space. So I'll briefly introduce our panelists. First, we'll have Commissioner Mary Jo McGuire from Ramsey County, Minnesota, a leader not just among Minnesota's counties, but nationally, elected last year to the Executive Committee of the National Association of Counties. And she'll speak to us about the county's child care and health care training programs. Next, we have County Executive Mark Pollinkarts from Erie County, New York, a longtime executive from Erie County, now in his third term. The executive has helped shepherd the county's response to the pandemic and has been a great partner to the president and this administration. He's going to speak about the county's healthcare training program. We're also thrilled to have Mayor Joyce Craig from Manchester, New Hampshire, who has been committed to the health and well-being of her community throughout her tenure, not just in leading her community through the pandemic, but also focused on combating the opioid crisis. She's going to speak about the health care core. We also are thrilled to have Dr. Shomash Saha, Director of the Communities Rise Together initiative at the Public Health Institute. She's the founder and executive lead of Wellbeing and Equity in the World, as well as executive lead of WIN Network, which works together to advance intergenerational well-being and equity. She's going to talk to us about her American Rescue Plan funded community health worker efforts across the country. And last but certainly not least, we're thrilled to have SEIU Secretary Treasurer April Verrett. April Verrett is the Secretary Treasurer of the 2 million member Service Employees International Union and previously served as president of the nation's largest long-term care union, where she fought on behalf of more than 400,000 long-term care providers working in nursing homes and private homes throughout California. She'll speak to the nationwide efforts to leverage rescue plan funds for care workers. And with that, I'll turn it over to Carol.
Thanks so much to Carmel. Have we got a panel for you? I am so delighted to be here. Again, I'm Carol Johnson. I'm the administrator of the Health Resources and Services Administration in the Department of Health and Human Services. And if you watching on the screen, I hope you have your lunch. I hope you're ready to settle in for this terrific panel. If you have needed childcare in your life for your family to be able to work, if you need a doctor or a nurse practitioner to be able to manage your child's asthma, if you need a vaccine in your community, if you need someone in your community who's ensuring that you have safe water and safe restaurants, if you need someone in your community who's taking care of your older parents, this is the panel for you. This is the panel about how the American Rescue Plan sent a lifeline out to the workforce as part of the healthcare strategy that the president has embraced. And not only sent us that lifeline that helped us shore up childcare, community-based services, home services for the elderly, our healthcare workforce in underserved communities, but also sowed the seeds for transformational healthcare workforce work in the years ahead. And so we're going to talk today about the caring economy. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how the president and vice president have really seen the American Rescue Plan as a way for us to support the healthcare workforce through this critical time related to recovery from the pandemic, but also thought about it as a way to really sow the seeds for what we need the caring economy to look like going forward. And we'll need, and we will continue to work with our colleagues in Congress to build on this work, but there is transformational work that's happened through the American Rescue Plan. So let me just tell you a little bit about that. First, how did the American Rescue Plan send a lifeline to the healthcare workforce? One, we at the Department of Health and Human Services fund community health centers. There are 1,400 community health centers in historically underserved communities across the country. These were some of the hardest hit places by the pandemic. Billions of dollars from the American Rescue Plan went to health centers to ensure they could retain their staff, that they could add new staff, and that they could build capacity to respond, to build community-based vaccination programs, to support testing, to support masks and therapeutics, as well as making sure that primary care remained available in some of the hardest hit communities in the country. Second, immediately the American Rescue Plan sent billions of dollars out to states to support the public health workforce. Public health workforce, so much has been asked of the public health workforce in the last 2+ years, and we needed to be able to support the workforce, to retain those we had, to expand those we need, to ensure that we had an aggressive mitigation and response strategy in response to COVID-19. Third, as you've heard so much today, the American Rescue Plan, we can't talk enough about how the American Rescue Plan sent life-saving, sustaining resources to child care services across the country. As Carmel mentioned, I used to be the Commissioner of Human Services in the state of New Jersey. We struggled year after year to make sure that we were doing everything we possibly could to raise rates in child care services. The pandemic made that incredibly hard, incredibly challenging, because now we needed to rethink student to staff ratios, or we need to rethink a whole host of things about what it takes to really deliver child care. And the American Rescue Plan recognized that, sent money to states immediately to help address that issue. And the fourth thing, again, on the emergency response side, the lifeline that came to healthcare through the American Rescue Plan, that again, we cannot overstate, is how important the resources that have gone to the direct care workforce have been. Home and community-based services is sort of an inside the beltway term that really means the person who comes to care for your mom or dad in their home as they're aging, the person who runs the group home that cares for people with intellectual disabilities in your community so they can lead their fullest life, the person who cares for young children who have autism to make sure that they get the education that they need and deserve. That's a workforce that for far too long has been undervalued and undersupported, and the American Rescue Plan changed the game there. And we have much more work to do for the work that comes ahead, but that's why I'm so excited to have our colleagues from SEIU on the panel who've been leading this work for a very long time, and why it's so important that Build Back Better takes the next step in this work. But then let me tell you a little bit about how the American Rescue Plan was not just a lifeline to the healthcare workforce, but how it's transforming how we think about this work going forward. First, the American Rescue Plan created a public health corps for the first time, which is how we are thinking about this historic moment when so many young people are interested in public health, to really get them engaged in public health so that they can then be deployed to communities across the country and really get a sense of what public health work looks like on the ground in communities. And hopefully we can build the next round of leadership of public health employees. Second, we at HRSA were able to fund with the American Rescue Plan direct investments in community-based organizations across the country to build community health workers who reflect the communities that they serve, who are trusted messengers, who could help deliver key messages about vaccine access, but so much more about the health and well-being of communities. And you're going to hear today from Dr. Saha about the work that the Public Health Institute and Communities Rise has been doing in this space. It is something we at HHS have wanted to do for years, to be able to directly support the community-based organizations that are trusted in the community, that are the voice of the community, and being able to know what the issues are and know what the challenges are. And I think Dr. Saha is going to talk about some of these examples, and we just couldn't be more excited about what that foretells for us at HRSA for the kind of work we can do going forward. Three, for the very first time in the American Rescue Plan, where for years and years and years, Congress has been terrific in helping us support what it takes to train the next generation of the healthcare workforce. But we have not had resources dedicated to what it takes to retain the healthcare workforce. And after 2.5 years in the pandemic, we are concerned about this incredible strain that the heroic members of the healthcare workforce have undergone. And so the American Rescue Plan invested in the health and well-being of our current workforce. And we've been able to make grants across the country to help support the health and well-being of our current workforce. And we think that, again, is the kind of change that happened from the American Rescue Plan that we intend to build on going forward. And then the fourth thing I'll just say is that the American Rescue Plan, in the 50th year of our National Health Service Corps, made the most historic investment ever in this program. The National Health Service Corps is the way we provide scholarships and loan repayment to medical students, to behavioral health specialists, to nurses, to encourage them, incentivize them to work in some of the most historically underserved communities in the country. And as the pandemic has created so many challenges in hard-hit communities, the National Health Service Corps has been able to put healthcare workers on the ground in these communities, and we give them loan repayment, and they commit to working in those communities. And what we find is that people who participate in National Health Service Corps tend to stay in the communities that they train in. And so it's a tremendous program, an under-tapped resource in the federal government. The American Rescue Plan recognized that and is growing it substantially so that we can continue to ensure that there are healthcare services in the communities that need it most. So today's panel is the chance for us to talk about many of these efforts in detail, but also to talk about the fact that we are not alone in this effort. The communities across the country, states and localities have said, with our American Rescue Plan money, we're going to invest in the healthcare workforce. We're going to invest in the public health workforce. We're going to invest in the caring economy, because this is what it takes to deliver healthcare equity in America. And so I'm really excited to turn it over to our panel and for the discussion today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Administrator Johnson, for those great remarks. It's very exciting to hear about all of the things that are going on. I am Mary Jo McGuire, Ramsey County Commissioner. That includes the city of St. Paul and 17 suburban cities in the state of Minnesota. And as was referenced earlier, I'm in leadership at our national association, so I get to see a lot of the amazing work that counties throughout the country are doing. But today I get to talk about my own personal county that I'm very proud of, the work that we're doing in this field of the caring economy and the caring community, and highlight some programs that we've got going on. First of all, I want to say what an honor it is for me to be on this panel, but among all of the people that have spoken today, it is great to be working on these issues with so many amazing people. I want to thank the President and the Vice President Harris for their leadership, and Secretary Walsh and Jean Sperling for their work on this summit, and for all of their continuing work on the American Rescue Plan dollars. Every penny of the American Rescue Plan dollars that Ramsey County got has been desperately needed to help our community persevere through and beyond the COVID-19 pandemic and the social upheaval that many of us are experiencing. We are so grateful for the American Rescue Plan dollars because we needed rescuing, frankly, and the administration heard our plea. But in Ramsey County, as I know with many counties, we didn't want to go back to normal whenever this would end, which of course it's not ending anytime soon, unfortunately. But we decided we're not going back to anything. We are moving forward, and that is exactly what Build Back Better is, and it is all about moving forward in better ways. And I'm proud to say that Ramsey County is helping start with many programs that are working on that. So we have allocated most of our ARPA dollars into transformational and foundational work in our community and to really foster community prosperity. So we are really investing in our community. These efforts include affordable housing, violence prevention, and a workforce ecosystem, which is what I'd like to talk a little bit about here. So we want to set up a post-pandemic workforce ecosystem that ensures that our county has a diverse and talented workforce because we are a major employer, and we want to build a workforce ecosystem that supports the needs of our businesses, our individuals, and our families. Two specific examples of our workforce investments include our Early Childhood Academy and our public health career pathways. Our county has partnered with our child care community to establish an early childhood academy that will help keep America working. As we have said, we need our child care workers to help with that. So the Early Childhood Academy provides or offers new incentives and supports to attract and retain early child care programs and bolster the child care workforce across our community. This includes providing bonuses of $1,000 per year and free professional development to help current providers remain open. And we are needing to recruit new providers. So our Early Childhood Academy recruits new child care educators in underserved communities where we are really most needing them. We offer training, and we offer a whole child development associate credential so that they can then open up their own child care
centers or work in childcare centers with the credentials that they need. And so with this childcare credential, we provide them with the ability to actually get that and then to use it in our communities. Participants will also receive mentoring support provided by experienced childcare educators who currently operate high-quality programs and other necessary support for early childhood educators looking to open up childcare programs. We're really excited about this program, and we'll keep you posted on how we do with it, but it's a great start to what we really need in our community. Our county's work in this area reinforces and deepens the child care workforce investments made by our own Governor Walsh in Minnesota through monthly child care stabilization payments focused on direct care staff. These efforts are both funded by the American Rescue Plan dollars, so together we've really been able to coordinate our funds. Our second area that I want to talk about is our Public Health Career Pathways program. This is a program for low-wage earners currently employed within Ramsey County that will increase the public health workforce and economically lift up our low-wage earners. 2 career pathways are being offered now, a registered nurse and a community healthcare worker. The selection priority is given to those who live in our county, are single parents, receiving public assistance, and/or are a member of an underrepresented group in the public health workforce. This program will provide the help for these workers to really be successful in these programs. We partner with a local university to provide these nursing degree and the community health worker degree, and it will provide college preparatory coaching and mentoring, tuition reimbursement, expenses for transportation or childcare, and a wage supplement, and community member governance committee to inform and advise on program development and progress. So we are really wanting to make it possible for these students to really be successful and for us to get the workers that we need in these really crucial areas. We're so grateful to the administrations of President Biden and Vice President Harris and our Governor Walsh for your continued support for direct allocation and investments in local governments. These investments will ensure that everyone has a place to call home at the end of a day, a safe and connected community to live in, and opportunities to build prosperity for themselves and their families. We know that our president and vice president have both served in local government. We know that they understand the importance of what local government does, and that is why it's been such an honor to be on this panel. And we hope for future direct investments to continue and build upon our work. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It is my honor to be here. I am Mark Polenkars, the County Executive of Erie County, New York. Now, Erie County is made up of 25 towns, 2 small cities, and the city of Buffalo. And so I would be remiss if I did not have the opportunity once again to express my thanks on behalf of a grateful community to President Biden and Vice President Harris, as well as their teams for their response to what unfortunately occurred in our great community on May 14th, the horrific mass shooting. On behalf of the people of Erie County and the city of Buffalo in which I live, I want to thank them all, including the federal teams that are still on the ground helping us to heal, because I can tell you, your work is helping our community to heal. So thank you. I'm here to talk about, once again with this great panel, the issues associated with workforce and the healthcare system. And what we've seen, unfortunately, coming out of the pandemic is many people leave the workforce in healthcare for various reasons. Aging out, burnout, and what we needed to do was replace those workers to ensure that we could provide for the needs of our community in a post-pandemic era. Prior to 2021, the United States Department of Health and Human Services offered educational and training programs to individuals who were in the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program, TANF, in which they were trained for educational position or trained for jobs in the healthcare industry that exist in our community and were expected to expand. This program was known as the Healthcare Professions Opportunities Grant, HPOG for short. It was a very good program, but for whatever reason, it was not continued by Congress as effective for the federal fiscal year of 2021-2022. Our Department of Social Services, as well as the Buffalo and Erie County Workforce Investment Board that administered the HPOG program, asked us to find a way to replicate it in Erie County. And that's exactly what we did, because when we were putting together our plan for investing the American Rescue Plan aid that we received, we ensured that we created a program to take HPOG and basically put it on steroids because we knew it worked. And so we created the Erie County Healthcare Careers Program, ECHC for short, and initially funded all of it through our ARPA grant and first allocation that we received in 2021. So commencing last October, the Erie County Healthcare Careers Program provides educational training assistance of up to $10,000 per student in high-demand healthcare occupations in our community, including but not limited to registered nurse, licensed practical nurse, physical therapy assistant, radiological technologist, respiratory therapist, and others. In this program, the recipient no longer had to be just enrolled in TANF, but did need to meet other low-income eligibility requirements, including making no more than $25 an hour in their current employment. In addition to the educational training grant, we provided assistance in many of the other areas you've heard of so far today, such as a transportation allowance, a child care allowance, and I think everyone's going to talk about child care in one form or another, as well as access to an emergency fund of up to $500 per person for whatever the emergency was, car repair, health care cost, whatever the person needed, we provided that fund available to them. One of the things that we wanted to do when we started the program in October of 2021 was to enroll 200 students by the end of the first year, so September 30th of this year. What we found out very quickly is there was tremendous demand for this program across our entire community. By December of 2021, more than 150 students were already enrolled in it. We had pretty much used up our initial allocation that we put from ARPA money, and there was a waiting list to get in. So because of the tremendous success and demand, Erie County put an additional $1.3 million of our own county money into the ECHC program to prepare for the additional anticipated enrollment that we knew was coming. I'm proud to say, working with our educational collegiate training partners, as of yesterday, more than 357 Erie County residents are now enrolled in the Erie County Healthcare Careers Program, and we expect nearly 400 to be enrolled by the end of the admissions period for this upcoming September admissions time. Due to the initial success, as long as the demand for the training exists in these in-demand healthcare occupations, we will continue to fund this program because we know the individuals who are trained in this program will find a job. These jobs exist. It is our hope that every single one of the individuals who goes through the Erie County Healthcare Careers Program is employed within 1 month of the ending of their training. And based on what we're hearing from those in the healthcare field in Erie County, they will be hired. So on behalf of the people of Erie County, I want to once again thank the Biden administration, Vice President Harris, and their entire team for passage of the American Rescue Plan. Without the initial allocation from our American Rescue Plan amounts that we received, it is highly unlikely this successful program would not have been created. But it was because of the ARPA aid we received. And because of its passage and your efforts, at least 357 Erie County residents, as well as their families, are on the road to a better future. And we're strengthening our local healthcare system in the process. So on behalf of the people of Erie County, thank you for providing us the assistance so that we could create this very important program.
Good afternoon. I am Joyce Craig, Mayor of the City of Manchester, New Hampshire, and it's such an honor to be here with you and with these panelists this afternoon. I want to thank President Biden, Vice President Harris, Secretary Walsh, and Jean Sperling for the opportunity, and everyone at the White House for the invitation to join you today to really highlight Manchester's public health and safety team, or what we commonly refer to as FAST, and specifically our healthcare worker program. The FAST program is an evidence-based, community-centered public health and public safety partnership to increase the overall health outcomes of our residents, reduce the number of unintended calls to our police department, provide proper level of care to residents seeking services. And key to that program is the community health workers who serve as advocates and liaisons to our residents, city departments, healthcare providers, and social service agencies. They conduct outreach and prevention education. They coordinate care, and they improve communication and help address health inequities in underserved communities. This program is groundbreaking, not just because of what our community health workers provide, but because of who our community health workers are. Each one of these individuals has close ties to our community. They live in our neighborhoods, they speak multiple languages, and they're dedicated to creating a Manchester where every single resident feels connected and supported. Our community health workers come from a variety of careers, ranging from a medical assistant to a banker, to a human traffic field researcher, to a former chemistry teacher. Each brings something unique to the role, but all chose this profession because they know what it's like to face adversity and want to help bridge that gap between the available services and our community members who need to access them. Sometimes that takes the form of translation services or a connection to resources. And sometimes it means being a kind person who listens and can sympathize. I want to give you a sense as to who these individuals are and why they chose this profession. Gabriel became a community health worker because after his sister tragically passed away in Nigeria after a medical procedure, he wanted to make sure that no one in our community felt they had to suffer alone. Isaac joined the team because as a medical interpreter, he saw how language barriers can impact every single aspect of care. And Nietzsche chose this work because after immigrating to the United States, she wanted to help other new Americans navigate our sometimes complicated system. Our community health workers came to the FAST program with the passion of helping others. But we were able to better prepare them for this work with 56 hours of community health worker training, as well as training on the principles of public health, outreach methods, and home visits. And as this program grows, they'll be trained in administering trauma-informed care and acting as violence interrupters and so much more. This program focuses on empowerment of our community and our community health workers. And it's possible because of the federal funding allocated directly to the City of Manchester through the American Rescue Plan. I want to thank our federal delegation for advocating for direct funding to our city, to local communities. And while I get to come here and talk about this program and how exciting it is, it would not be possible without the dedication of our public health director, Anna Thomas, our chief of police, Alan Aldenberg, our supervisor of the community health workers, Biram Sadya, as well as the teams at the health department and the police department at the City of Manchester. Again, I want to thank you for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to share the information of what's happening in the City of Manchester.
It's such a privilege to be with all of you and to hear these amazing stories, isn't it? It gives you hope that real change is possible. I'm here, like my colleagues, to share a story of hope, because I think that's what the American Rescue Plan has created in communities across the country. The over 200 that are a part of Communities Rise Together, created by 12 partners who joined together when we realized that in this moment of the pandemic, we needed to build civic capacity and call it in. We needed to bring the public into public health because our healthcare and public health systems were completely at their limit. And in a moment where people's jobs and their lives were at stake together, there couldn't be a response that built trust that didn't create jobs, create well-being as a whole, and create health together. And because the American Rescue Plan funding created the flexibility to build responses in hundreds of communities, we were able to do that together. And I'd like to share with you the story, which is a story of Communities Rise Together. Now, Communities Rise came about as a partnership, not of any one organization, but a network of over 12 partners who each collectively lead major networks, networks that reach 10,000 Black artist activists at Chromatic Black, or the Migrant Clinicians Network, where we have an outreach worker, Esther Rojas, who's here today, to groups like Latino Health Access, who have been working for decades to improve the life and access for Latino communities, to the National Indian Health Board, the Hawaii Public Health Institute, Meals on Wheels America, U.S. Aging, the National Councils on Aging, and is facilitated by Public Health Institute, We in the World, and the WIN Network. But I really want to share that because it's important for you to know that this story is really their story. And ultimately, the story is the story of the over 2,066 community health workers that we brought in to help support this change. So how did we do it? Well, first we said, you know, those who are closest to the problems are likely to be the most resourceful in creating the solutions. We believed and knew that communities who have experienced inequities have built natural civic systems that help take care of one another in the context of their lives. We just didn't usually recognize them as healthcare workers or as public health workers. And so we said, well, what if we could flip that? If instead of asking for trust, what if we could trust? And by inviting them in, by actually giving them resources, and by that I mean money, training, and supports to be able to walk along the way to build their strategy rather than execute our strategy, we invited them in. And as we did that and gave them the opportunity to lead this response, focused in communities that were experiencing the greatest harm in the context of the pandemic, we created jobs and we trained that workforce, over 3,200 to date. And to not only reach out and connect people to vaccines, but to understand the well-being of their communities, to use their data to strategize about what would improve the lives of their fellow community members. And because of that, they became trusted. They created the most innovative kinds of solutions. Shaquita Lassine in Eastern North Carolina, and Jessica Joyner in Canada, North Carolina, teamed up. One of them trained 34 barbers to become vaccine ambassadors, so people could learn about COVID and the vaccine while they were getting their haircuts. And they held health fairs together, in fact, that were celebrations. They were joy and community gatherings rather than vaccine clinics. In fact, they had food and music. I've been to some of these. They're really fun to go to. Great food. But in addition to that, they connected with food and housing rights because that's what they could see people needed, and expungement of records so that they could, for small minor fees and fines, so that people weren't held back from going back to work. So they not only got jobs themselves, but created the opportunity for others to have jobs. The Migrant Clinicians Network found ways to get radio ads to migrant workers in the field, agricultural workers in the field, to know safe places that they could go to for vaccination, and kept up a wave of communication. And Chromatic Black artist activists brought together an amazing response called Keep Black Love Alive, which was about combating our misinformation and disinformation, and by creating a campaign to prevent tooth decay, to immunize us. I would say to you that no one of us could have created this, that in fact, abundance and equity lies in trusting those who are closest to the problems to lead the solutions and supporting them. So before coming here, now I'll tell you what they managed to do. They reached 44 million people. They connected over 215,000 to their needs for their life, and over 184,000 people got vaccinated in over 200 communities across the country. Rather than just having my ideas, I asked them, what would you do if we had the opportunity to lean into this moment of infrastructure funding? What would they do? They wanted to first, of course, thank the president and vice president and this administration for the way in which they had trusted them. But they had some ideas. They wanted us to say, how can we take the things that worked, like creating jobs in the communities that were the hardest hit,
that had experienced historic harm and build that into a long-term strategy, a pipeline that could make sure that we had a diversified public health and healthcare system of those community members truly leading? How could we see community health workers not just as care extenders, but as community leaders and create a greater scope of training and support for them? Of course, they said prioritize jobs in those communities that were hardest hit. But they also said, can you please make it easy for us to improve well-being? There's all these resources now. How can we connect the dots across agencies and at the state and local level to make sure that people got support together? And to do that requires all of us to be making the investments and changing ourselves so that we're coordinated and connected at the federal level all the way to the state and local level so that that outreach worker can do what she needs to do to improve the health and well-being of their community. It means that we all have to become investors with them in creating intergenerational well-being and equity. And I think that's the real hope of this moment, to make these investments in a way that creates legacies of well-being for generations to come. That's what they said.
Wow. So I'm April Verrett, and I am Secretary Treasurer of our SEIU, our international union. It's really a thrill to be here with you all today talking about investing in care. The pandemic lay true for some, but really shone a light on the stark reality that many Americans have been living and toiling and working in for generations. We need transformational investments in care that will support families and workers throughout our economy. While we have more to do, we are really proud that the American Rescue Plan and Act took hundreds of billions of steps forward in our nation's care system, from child care to health care to home care. Home care is one of our national union's first biggest priorities, and so that's where I want to spend my focus today. And we really want to thank the tireless workers across the country who really fought, who have been fighting for decades. But we saw them stand up in states, and states are putting ARP funds to good use. There's not many times we can say that all 50 states agree on anything in this country, but every single state in the country applied for home care dollars. And more than half are taking the steps, interesting, right? And more than half are taking the steps to raise low payment rates for home care workers while requiring those dollars go directly to workers. And a few examples of what has been done with ARPA money. In West Virginia, the state is raising rates to enable worker incentives such as retention bonuses and hiring bonuses, as well as increasing benefits. In Georgia, we see money going to support hazard pay, shift differentials, and signing and retention bonuses. Arizona is involving stakeholders to reassess the rates while giving one-time payments to providers so that they can raise wages and benefits. And lots of other states, including Virginia, is focused on boosting training opportunities. There in Virginia, care workers just last year, in 2021, received bonuses of $1,000 for training. Each dollar invested in care has a multiplier effect. We know that care and investing in care enables all other work to happen. It enables women and men, but mainly women, who are dependent upon in this country to be primary caregivers in their families. This investment in care enables women to be able to return to work. It also enables caregivers the ability to continue to do this life-sustaining work without having to make the tough choice. Do I want to do this work that I am called to do, or do I need to go and get another job to be able to sustain my own family? So while I pay my rent and put food on the table. We know these dollars go right back into the economy through consumption, taxes, and increased productivity. Most importantly, during the pandemic, the ARP investment in home care shines a light on this largely women of color and immigrant workforce. Care workers were just essential during this pandemic. They have always been essential. This largely women workforce, 90% of the workers that do this work are women, 60% of them are women of color, many of them are immigrants. We know this work dates back to the time of slavery in this country, where Black women in this country do the work, and we are still seeking to make sure the work that these women do receive the value and the respect that it deserves in our economy and in our society. We've not yet really begun to address the systemic issues. And that's why we all need a greater infusion of resources to recruit, retain, and grow the needed workers to carry this work forward in our future. There is a growing demand in our country for home care. We must transform these jobs into good union jobs with benefits capable of supporting and sustaining families. It is why in our union, we've been fighting to include an investment in care in home and community-based services and reconciliation. With ARP, we made progress. Unfortunately, that funding is time limited, but if Congress doesn't act, that progress that we've made, those hundreds of billions of steps forward could be erased. But it's not just up to Congress to act. We are excited to work with this administration, with President Biden and Vice President Harris and others, to make sure that the rules and regulations that support home care include adequate payment rates and also really allow the right for these workers to unionize. We will continue to work with states and county and municipal governments to ensure that their investments yield the needed impact. I'll close in saying it is time that we follow through on President Biden's vision. We need to work together to build a more sustainable and resilient care workforce so that care will be there when we all need it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Verrett, and this really inspiring panel. I want to note that yesterday, as we talked to the Vice President, she asked me personally to make sure that we convene a follow-up session that is more specifically focused on public health workforce as it's addressing existing health disparities, rising mental health challenges, and that that we're providing all the support that we can for families that have a family member with a disability, families dealing with a family member with autism and other challenges. So she was, and I think a lot of us have been really moved by how much is happening in this area, and it is worthy of its own conference. So stay tuned. So thank you very much. We are now down to our final few speakers, our final panel. And I'll ask them to come on up. As it has turned out, this entire workforce summit has had a very strong equity focus in each and every part. But we also wanted to highlight and inspire more to do the more targeted efforts that we need to make sure everyone, and really everyone, has the opportunity to contribute and be part of our workforce. And even as we've had this discussion, we've seen people talk about the barriers many face due to disabilities, due to homelessness, due to returning from prison, or other things that keep people disconnected. So we wanted to make sure that when we close, we really highlight this. And this is, of course, good for our macroeconomy. It's about building the supply of workers that are available, but it's also really just fundamental to any sense of economic dignity that we do everything possible to tear down the barriers so every person who is able has the ability to pursue their potential, contribute to their family, to their country, live independently. This is just essential to this president, this vice president's sense of the dignity of work. And so our next four speakers will discuss exactly these efforts, which are life-changing for people. They're often about first chances, and they're often about second or third chances. But it's about ultimately ensuring that we are honoring the human potential of all of our citizens. Our first two speakers you heard the vice president refer to. They're from my brother's hometown of Milwaukee. And they what the vice president saw there was something that inspired her. She wanted us to invite them and to talk about their example, as you heard. So so our first two speakers will be Lindsay Bloomer, who's the president and CEO of WRTP Big Step, the first female president and CEO in the workforce intermediaries history. It was their facility. The vice president visited in January in Milwaukee, and she'll speak about their outreach to underserved communities through American Rescue Plan funded manufacturing and construction. Shaitania Brown, also you heard about, is the CEO of Employ Milwaukee, local workforce development board, who led the creation of a reentry department in the organization, and will speak to the American Rescue Plan Skillful Transition Program, which is aimed at connecting underserved people to good jobs, including those returning from prison. Next, we'll hear from Commissioner Adrian Garcia. In our private session, he spoke very passionately about his perspective, both in his current job as county commissioner, but also in his past job as Harris County Sheriff. The commissioner will speak on American Rescue Plan funded countywide programs that employ individuals experiencing homelessness. And this is something we've talked about with many people, which is how not just to address the homelessness with economic opportunity and not just as seen as a housing strategy. And then Mayor Jim Strickland, thank you, the mayor coming from Memphis, Tennessee. He's been a longtime fighter for government transparency and public safety. And he'll speak about his ARP-funded efforts to train and employ disconnected youth in Memphis, including, I believe, some youth who have disabilities. He said earlier, a city where they do have an unfortunate number of disconnected youth, and he has spoken passionately about his efforts to exactly connect them. Just also as a side note, I was saying this to Commissioner Garcia, it's very interesting that in our private conversation and then in the public conversation, a sizable percentage of people have mentioned record expungement, which is interesting. That wasn't anything that was specifically put on the agenda, but when you hear it from so many people leading some of the model programs, I think that's something that we know that's an important issue, and it just inspires us more to do more to deal with it. So with that, I will turn it over to Lindsay Bloomer to start us off. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sperling, and thank you, of course, my fellow panelists and guests here today. And of course, thank you to President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Secretary Walsh for this great summit today. WRTP Big Step was really pleased to host Vice President Harris in January at our headquarters and training facility in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Her visit highlighted the numerous ways in which our community, just like communities across the country, are working to replace dangerous lead pipes, renovating deteriorating bridges, and safely building the homes and places where we live and where we work, all while supporting and training the next generation of workers on the front lines of those projects. At WRTP Big Step, a nonprofit workforce intermediary, we not only know folks want to work, they aren't afraid of the hard and satisfying work of the construction and manufacturing sectors that build and sustain and grow our infrastructure. We also are deeply committed by mission and by moral imperative to expand our workforce through supporting, assisting, training, and placing those individuals who identify as Black, Indigenous, people of color, and women, all who have been traditionally underrepresented in the construction and manufacturing workforce. With the support of our union partners and high road employers and a network of community-based organizations, we offer distinct and innovative pathways to family-sustaining wage careers, careers with integrity. There are 3 specific initiatives in which American Rescue Plan funds have vastly supported our work in expanding the workforce. First, pairing our strong entry-level manufacturing skills pre-apprenticeship program with a high school equivalency degree. This innovative approach earns youth and adult participants 2 union-recognized credentials in as little as 8 months, so they are work-ready and able to enter a registered apprenticeship and sign with employers immediately. Our outreach is carefully crafted to reach those who have been in low-paying jobs since leaving formalized school, returning citizens who have been justice involved, and out-of-school youth. We partner with Literacy Services of Wisconsin to ensure all curriculum is state certified and approved, and there are tutors and social supports in place during the entire program to remove any barriers to that learning and employment. With that blended learning, the continual support, and then the intentional career placement services, participants have access to real career pathways right away. Second, we're creating an innovative construction trades career pathway for youth enrolled in after-school programming and have not traditionally been workforce ready. By developing hands-on trades experience for those in 2nd through 12th grade, we are ensuring our youth not only know about their career options, but see themselves reflected and welcomed in the construction industry. As students progress through programming, they're able to access customized training with the union-recognized multi-craft core curriculum, which prepares them for registered apprenticeship once they graduate high school. They spend time with employers, learning hands-on what their days will look like and what they'll feel like on the job. This also builds relationships between soon-to-be graduates and employers, so all participants work together to achieve their goals even before that first day on the job. We are building the workforce pipeline now and into the future with Boys and Girls Clubs to blend learning, mentoring, and safe after-school spaces to ensure an equitable and diverse workforce from day one. Third and finally, we have worked in partnership with Employ Milwaukee and others to develop and launch the Community Resource Navigator program that engages under and unemployed individuals as community-based coaches connecting residents to traditionally disenfranchised neighborhoods with vital health, food, and employment resources. The pandemic, as we all know, disproportionately affected BIPOC individuals and women, particularly those in low-wage jobs and those who are caregivers, which threatened, of course, to contract our labor market and dismantle the strides we had made in diversification in the workforce. Through a network of resource providers, we removed barriers to enter into workforce training programs by providing ongoing supportive services such as driver's license recovery and pre-apprenticeship training basics. We quickly mobilized to double down our efforts in clearing pathways in construction and manufacturing, which were all deemed essential, by working with employers to rethink entry-level work opportunities and on-the-job learning. WRTP Big Step could not continue to expand the workforce in these intentional and innovative ways without the American Rescue Plan funds. They're not dollars that disappear into administrative coffers. They're leveraged and used directly, very, very directly to provide opportunities that are changing people's lives. We're lucky enough to bear witness to their stories. We see it as Dwayne completes his apprenticeship and is planning to start his own minority-owned construction business in Milwaukee. In Charnel, she supports her children without worrying about how she'll pay for groceries and school because she has a union career pathway now. In Robert, who spent years in corrections and within months of his release is a graduate of our training program and working diligently with his employer to earn more credentials. And of course with Monica, who loves coming downtown Milwaukee, and she told me she loves seeing the buildings she's restoring with her own 2 hands, when only months ago she thought that that wasn't a career accessible to her at all. We are building these programs with our own hands, with real dollars that are carefully stewarded into direct opportunities to expand the workforce for those who may not have previously had access to this work, this important and vital infrastructure work that sustains our Wisconsin communities. The work that gets high road employers good, safe, diverse, trained workers to keep our economy running. The work that helps, of course, our communities grow and thrive. At WRTP Big Step, we're honored to do that work that drives our community and our nation, and we won't stop until there's access and integrity in that work for every single one of us. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank the President, Vice President, and all of those who supported the American Rescue Plan, as well as it's been an honor and a blessing to spend the day with so many individuals from across the country doing great work using American Rescue Plan dollars. I'm Shaitani Brown, President and CEO of Employ Milwaukee, the Workforce Development Board for Milwaukee County, Wisconsin. I'd like to give a shout out to the hundreds. I represent hundreds of workforce board professionals who do this work on a daily basis from across the country. The work that we do is critical in our local areas. We change lives of those seeking employment, as well as we build talent pipelines for employers in our communities. Employ Milwaukee, as I mentioned, is the largest workforce board in the state. We serve the largest economically and racially diverse populations. On an annual basis, we serve over 10,000 individuals, 89% of whom are people of color. Most of these individuals live in high unemployment, high poverty areas in the city of Milwaukee. And part of our goal is we prioritize quality jobs that have family supporting wages, benefits, career advancement opportunities. In fact, prior to the pandemic, and now we see even post-pandemic, our average wages are trending over $17 an hour. At Employ Milwaukee, we believe that every person and every worker deserves an equitable opportunity to achieve economic stability and success. We know that our work is important because everything you read and everything you see says that training and education are crucial tactics in addressing employment, income, wealth disparities that preclude too many people of color from economic and family security. When we're designing our programs, our workforce programs, equity is always front and center in our approach in the work that we do. In fact, when we received a $5.2 million American Rescue Plan investment from the state of Wisconsin, we knew as an organization it was the opportunity to act boldly, to create an innovative program that would address systemic barriers to participation that contribute to so many employment and economic disparities. The program we developed, we branded as the Skillful Transitions Program. It engages our community partners with intention, centers worker and business voices, and aligns our programs and resources to support the whole person, and I stress whole person, in training and career advancement. Our goal when creating Skillful Transitions were twofold. One, to specifically target underserved populations, and two, to ensure that a majority of the funding would go directly to the individuals participating to support upskilling and build wealth in their families and communities. Currently, 3 out of every $5 of the $5.2 million budget goes directly to participants in the form of support services, incentives, training, stipends, and wages. Employ Milwaukee will serve at least 500 job seekers throughout the 2-year Skillful Transitions program. We have expanded eligibility beyond our existing programs and are conducting strategic outreach to enroll participants from underserved populations, including racial and ethnic minorities, non-custodial parents, persons with disabilities, victims of human trafficking, veterans, single parents, older adults, youth who are aging out of foster care, immigrants and refugees, and justice-involved individuals. In the first 6 months of implementation, the grant has served 169 individuals using approximately $2 million of the resources for training, paid work experiences, support services, stipends, and incentives. A key feature of our program is upskilling support. Many individuals are never able to leave the minimum wage job to gain the skills to get the better job because they get stuck in this cycle of the work and poverty. Skillful Transitions provides stipends during training to allow our job seekers to make life work while they're upskilling. We also prioritize projects that support the need for more workers in our labor market, which is experiencing historically low unemployment rates. Prior to the pandemic, we were not sitting at the table with early childhood education. You heard people speak before us today talk about early childhood education. An example of what we've been able to do with our ARP funds is to create an early childhood education training program built from a network of community partners that will train job seekers in a classroom, including work experiences in daycare centers. Participants will receive stipends and support while obtaining technical college degrees connected to registered apprenticeship. Developing more skilled early childhood workers will allow parents and young children to return to the workforce at a greater pace, supporting the needs of our local economy. And that's something we've heard over and over again, the issues of childcare. Due to the great need in our community, Employ Milwaukee has provided just as involved individuals with employment and training services for decades. We're not new to this. Black people in Wisconsin have long suffered from systemic racism that creates disadvantages in employment, housing, education, which continuously feeds into inequities of the criminal justice system. I hate to say this, but the data is shocking in Wisconsin. 1 in every 36 adults in Wisconsin is in prison, a rate that's the highest in the nation and more than twice as high as the national average. In Milwaukee County, more than half of the African-American men in their 30s have either served time in prison or had some involvement with the justice system. To address these disparities, our Skillful Transitions program has partnered with 2 community agencies serving both males and females returning from incarceration through job readiness training, support services, trauma-informed care, cognitive behavioral therapy, training, and employment. My mayor approached me early part of the summer and talked about doing a work experience program for individuals starting at the age of 10. And the work that we traditionally do, we start at 14. So that was an undertaking that was like, do I want to do this? But I'm very blessed and thankful that I took that challenge and call on. We've created and launched a new early youth intervention program for 10 to 14-year-olds called Camp Rise, aimed at addressing the crisis of Black boys committing crime in Milwaukee. Anyone who turns on the TV, you will see over and over again, you see young people between the ages of 10 and 14 committing crimes of stealing cars and the like. Camp Rise is designed to provide early intervention services through preventative and proactive activities, including work-based learning and enrichment activities that are structured and staffed by culturally relatable young adults and senior members of our community. Youth receive weekly stipends to incentivize participation and put money in the pocket, everything that young people want. So again, I want to thank the Vice President and Secretary Walsh for hosting the event today. I want to thank them for the opportunity to share the work that Employ Milwaukee is doing to advance racial equity and to amplify our impact in this workforce development space. Our goal is to ensure that every individual is connected to workforce opportunities that will allow them to thrive economically and sustainably. The American Rescue Plan has provided an amazing opportunity to innovate and break down systemic barriers that have prevented many from realizing their dreams of wealth and independence. I encourage everyone to act boldly now and over the next 2 years. Try new things. I live by a motto: the only way the impossible becomes possible is to believe that it is so. So I ask, the pandemic has shown us it is no longer business as usual. We have to find unique ways to serve those that have been underserved if we truly want to change the narrative. So again, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, and I'm just excited and honored to be with this distinguished panel and all the ones that have spoken before us. I want to begin with this quote. The community helped me stand up. It didn't give me a handout. It didn't give me food. It gave me a job. That's all I needed. All I needed was a chance. That is something from one of our participants in the program that I'm going to share with you. But it's also why I want to thank President Biden and Vice President Harris for their leadership. Because if not for the American Rescue Plan dollars, the innovation that you're hearing about today would not be possible, and it definitely would not be possible in Harris County, Texas. My name is Adrian Garcia. I'm the County Commissioner of Precinct 2. But I also want to insert a point of personal privilege. As the only American born of my family, my parents came to the United States in 1959, made Houston their home. My father got to see my first election. My beautiful 98-year young mother is still with us. So I just want to say, gracias, mama, por lo que has hecho. When I served as sheriff of Harris County, Texas, I saw firsthand how often homelessness was misunderstood. I also it was overwhelming for me when I would walk through the county jail and witness the human capital that was incarcerated versus being out in the workforce community. And recognizing that law enforcement should not be the only answer for homelessness. And it's also recognizing that regardless of one's walk of life, homelessness is not something any one of us want to see in our communities, confront on our street corners, or have to answer to regarding our respective constituents. So last year, on any given day, there was approximately 2,900 people who were experiencing homelessness in Harris County at any given time. My team and our partners approached the issue with creativity, collaboration, and compassion. I championed a unique idea brought forth from my fellow elected officials in Harris County, that is County Judge Lina Hidalgo, Commissioner Rodney Ellis, and my other colleagues on Commissioner's Court. This is how Employ to Empower was born. It was designed as a low-barrier, employment-first model. The goal was simple: to provide employment opportunity to those impacted by homelessness. The key: bring in the right partners. A local nonprofit to do the case management that we've heard so much about today, but also a compassionate law enforcement agency like the one led by Sheriff Ed Gonzalez at the Harris County Sheriff's Office. We connected career and recovery resources who are experienced at working with the homeless population, as well as the Harris County Sheriff's Office to launch the program. We worked together to create a model. My office provides contract work for career and recovery. They go out and recruit from the encampments that we see in our parks and on the sides of our freeways, and provide wraparound services to those who participate. The Harris County Sheriff's Office helps with screening, training, and supervision. It would be impossible to do this without the buy-in of a compassionate local law enforcement agency. Employ to Empower launched in June of 2021 as a pilot program out of my office. I took $150,000 out of my budget to launch the pilot initiative. On the first day, there were 4 participants. Since then, nearly 80 have gone through the program, with around 20 participants a day. Under the county-wide program, we get to pay $15 an hour for tasks such as covering graffiti, pressure washing county facilities, and painting, and other types of work. No prior experience is needed. There's no long-term commitment, and there's no background check. Setting it up as a low-barrier program allows for participants to ease their way back into the workforce. We call it exercising their work muscles. When someone hasn't worked in a long period of time, it's important to allow them to knock off the rust. They get a ride to and from the job, and they are also provided with breakfast and lunch. All the while, they're getting support services from Career and Recovery. In fact, once a week, they have dedicated Resource Day that connects them with ID services, healthcare, and other forms of assistance. And even on Resource Day, they're being compensated for their time at the same $15 an hour rate. After the first 6 months, Employ to Empower caught the attention of other precincts. With the help of the American Rescue Plan dollars, the program has grown from a $150,000 pilot program to over a $2 million county-wide program. Here are some of the outputs of this. 16 participants have been connected to job opportunities. 7 have secured full-time jobs. 47 have been assessed for housing, of which 19 have been placed in permanent supportive housing, and 12 are currently on the wait list. 21 have been connected to and now receive health care benefits and have access to medication for continued treatment. 55 have obtained their government IDs, and these are just some of the stats from the pilot version of the program. And so obviously we're expecting a great deal more from our county-wide. And that's why I'm very excited. And again, I want to thank the Biden administration for their compassion and for recognizing that there's important work that happens at the local community. But I especially want to thank a very key member of my staff, Mercedes Sanchez. She took this program from concept to implementation, and we're very, very proud of her work. Thank you for having me here today.
I'm Jim Strickland, Mayor of Memphis. It is an extraordinary honor to be here, invited by Vice President Harris to participate in this summit with so many great leaders. I'm the last speaker. We've run a little late, and I'm sure the only person watching in Memphis. I just want to say hello, Mom. Let me set the stage for workforce in Memphis. We have right now about 10,000 open jobs. That's not including 2,300 new jobs that St. Jude Children's Research Hospital announced today. It's not including 6,000 jobs at a Ford plant that's being built right outside of Memphis, and it's not including the supplier manufacturers who will locate in Memphis to supply that Ford manufacturer. So we have incredible opportunities out there, and we have a lot of workforce efforts going on. But what we did with our ARPA funds, we focused on our neighbors who needed the help most in 4 ways. First, high school teens. They lost out in-person school for a year. After school opportunities shut down, and most of the positive influences outside their family were shut down because they were literally isolated. What we did, we expanded a successful Boys and Girls Club program that was after-school activity in one high school. A big focus is on workforce development. 100% of the members who participate graduate high school, and 100% of them go on to higher education, get a job, or join the military. We expanded it 100% with ARPA funds to 10 additional high schools. Secondly, our Office of Youth Services created I Am Included program. I Am Included program. This summer, that I Am Included program serves students who are deaf and hard of hearing, blind or visually impaired, high functioning, or developmentally delayed. And we will include more students as the year goes on. Job skill readiness is a large part of this program. And thanks to the American Rescue Plan, we were able to expand that program. Third, like other cities you've heard in other towns, for those in the community who need a helping hand and deserve a second chance, we created reentry programs in 2016. They're administered through our Office of Community Affairs in conjunction with faith-based community partners and held at individual church locations. With the additional funds from the American Rescue Plan, from January to June of this year, 206 individuals graduated, 105 have already found employment, with 14 of those coming with the city of Memphis. And in another related program, sounds similar to yours, we call it the Public Service Corps. This program targets those having difficult finding a job, specifically those with criminal records, and offers part-time employment opportunities to serve the community through blight remediation efforts. But the end goal is to transition them to a career or an educational opportunity that would lead to a career. And number 4, we recently launched Opportunity Memphis R3, Rethinking, Rebuilding, Rebranding. For those of you who don't know, Opportunity Youth are those ages 16 to 24 who are not in school and don't have a job. They are totally disconnected. So now we offer a guided path to further their education or to prepare them for the workforce. This just started this year. So to date, we have had 29 graduates, with 24 of those now either enrolled in school, awaiting admission in school, actually working, or already have received workforce training certificates. I want to share 2 recent success stories from this program. Kania Howard and Justin Thompson were both in our first session that ran March and April this year. They successfully completed the program, and express their interest in the healthcare industry. With our funding from the American Rescue Plan, we were able to pay their tuition at a local certified nursing assistant program. And I'm extremely proud to say they graduated last week and each already have a job with a local healthcare provider. Young people like these two are the exact reason we created the program. They had a desire to achieve and to be more. They just needed help and guidance to get to where they wanted to go. And with our ARPA allocation, we were able to help them. So on behalf of Kania, Justin, and all the other participants, and on behalf of me, I want to thank first the Memphis City Council, who we could do nothing. It's a complete 100% partnership. Thank our city team, Ken Moody, who's with me today, Ike Griffith, and their teams who designed and run these programs. And certainly to the Biden-Harris administration and to Congress. Everyone here knows that much of what we do at local government is constrained by tight budgets. There's more need than resources. But President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Congress, you are allowing us to help more young people and more people who have difficulty finding employment in more innovative, significant, and meaningful ways. Thank you very much.
Well, just to close, I want to say in response to what Mayor Strickland said, I was National Economic Advisor in 2011, 2012, and 2013. And I saw what it was like when we were not able, through the Congress at that time, to get the kind of resources to make sure that the people we're seeing here could address those who had taken the biggest hits or already had setbacks in that recovery. And Vice President Biden at the time and President Obama and us knew that it's not good enough to have a recovery when so many people don't recover. And it's just so important that people understand that the strength of this American Recovery Act is an important lesson learned, that it's empowering you to deal not just with getting growth back, but dealing with the negative issues that have already been exacerbated, but also folks who need, just that little extra resources so that they can turn their lives around. And, beyond your mother, I'll be happy to tell you that, and I really mean this, and I want to thank thousands and thousands of people have participated and watched this session. And I want to thank the many of you that are still watching now. It means a lot to us. And really appreciate participation. And it was worth waiting this panel because I got more goosebumps during this panel because what you're talking about, the extra things you're doing for people who are the most disconnected, facing the greatest barriers, that also means you're doing the most to not just turn that life around, but then their family and then their children. I can't even imagine how you calculate the return on what each of you is doing. So thank you so much. Couldn't be a better end of this. We're not just doing this to highlight all the great things. We want to inspire people to follow these best models. We want to do more. I only have one email address at work, just one. It's eugene.b.sperling@who.eop.gov. And a lot of people say, why are you giving out your one and only email address? Because if you're on and you've been watching and you have ideas of what we could be doing or other convenings or other policies we should be thinking of, or different guidance that we could be putting out from the government to make clear what people could do, we're doing this not just to highlight the best practices so far, but to spread them and to do more. So again, don't ever call me Eugene, it's Gene, but my email is eugene.b.sperling@who.eop.gov, and we'd love to hear from you. And I just can't thank the Vice President, Secretary of Labor, but really most of all, the people that have come here who, not just because they're doing great things with the American Rescue Plan, but because they give their lives being heroes for the lives of other people. And God bless you, and thank you for being here. And with that, we are done with the White House Summit on the American Rescue Plan and Workforce. Thank you.